Hello YouTube, D-Decken here, and as of last night, like 10 o'clock last night, it's 9 o'clock now, almost 23 hours have passed, I finally managed to get dual level maxed in the November 2020 KC Cup. And I uploaded that game, I uploaded that game last night after it happened, and that game actually could have gone very, very different. I got very lucky. Like, had my opponent gone a bit more aggro, or like he had Berfamut in his hand, so he probably could have summoned the new Elsewhere monster, or he could have summoned Wave King Oblivion Caesar Ragnarok, and that could have easily wrecked me. Like I might have had to resort to using a powerful rebirth, and my opponent would have probably had to use their Floodgate, and since I was already going to top deck Galaxy Cyclone, like I could have very easily lost depending on how things gone. But again, I got very, very lucky, extremely lucky, and let me just say that this has probably been one of the most stressful, one of the most annoying KC Cups I've ever actually played. Usually, keep in perspective. I started this season before the KC Cup with about 12 wins in ranked duels, and I ended up with 98 wins by the end of it. And I haven't even played for today's games yet. So it took me over 80 wins throughout the entire KC Cup, and I started at level 10 already. So 80 wins just to get dual level max. And it has taken me, in some KC Cups I've gotten 40. I think the most has been 60 up till now. But this took me 80. I six times I got to dual level 19 right away, and then I immediately got kicked back down to dual level 18 to just fight my way back up to go back up to 19, and then I immediately got kicked back down. It was very, very, very frustrating, very annoying. And there was even a case where I got all the way up to the four wins in 19, and I was about to level up, and then I opened crap. I lost, and then I proceeded to lose a bunch more, and then got kicked back down again. So, can I just ask right away, just why? Why does dual level 19 have to be so difficult? I understand round two. Round two will decide, the top players in round two will decide who can play on, the world tournaments and whatnot, and me personally, I don't care. I'm a casual player who has not dropped a single set in the game, who has used his dream tickets to get certain cards to help myself, and I think I burned one dream ticket on a card I didn't need, and I'm regretting that now. But regardless, I'm just playing for fun, and I'm playing just to finish round one. That's all I want, to finish round one, to get the gems, and really just don't care about round two. If I win one duel in round two and have some sort of positive score, sure, that's all I care about. I do not care about round two whatsoever. So why is duel level 19 why is the curve level there so difficult? Why do I need the 5 wins in 19? Just make it 3 wins, or make it 5 wins in general, or there are so many ways you can do it, or even better, just for people who finish the event early, right? People who have finished the event early and are just waiting for round two to start. Why not every win they get nets them 500 points towards towards round two, and that way it would incentivize people to finish the event early. A lot of people will finish early, so that people who are trying to catch up or have an easier time and can get easier matches. And just why? Just I don't know. I find it frustrating, I really do. So, any case, the deck I've been using for a while now, and the deck I completed the KC Cup with, is in Zector. Now, unfortunately, I've had to change this up a couple times near the end, because I was running 3 cards in this deck that effectively kind of bricked when I saw it. They were useful in certain situations, but they effectively bricked, so I had to basically take them out for other cards. And those 3 cards were a second copy of Neos, and Like, the idea behind Neos is, the running 2 Neos is to make Neos Fusion live whenever possible. Because you can send it from your deck, that thins cards out of your deck. Like, the idea is to run 2 so you can always have 1 to pitch for Neos Fusion, and that's nice. But the problem I was having was, in many of my duels, I was opening the Neos instead of the Neos Fusion or even the Dragon Age. And the only time it's good to open one or even both Neos, which, my gosh, that happened a couple times. I opened up both Neos and couldn't really do anything. Also, hey, my phone's dying, cool. Any case, the only time that was actually useful to have Neos is if I had, like, Rakeki Break or Predaplant Cleamadu, which I can go into Elemental Hero Excrudo as an option, but other than that, like, no, it was almost never an idea to have it in my opening hand, so the reason I cut it back to 1, which albeit a little bit riskier, is just to decrease the chance of seeing it in general. Like, I don't want to see it, I'm running a 21 card deck, the odds are now less to see it, versus the 20 card deck of 2 copies, hopefully, and that so far has made things better. Like, I haven't really opened it yet, so we'll see. Like, RNG can kind of be sometimes, but we'll see. Another card I was running was Miracle Fusion, and come on. So the idea behind Miracle Fusion was it's a second target for Dragon Magic, so that if I already have Neos Fusion, I can pitch a card and add it. Or if I'm running the Predaplant Fusion monster, if I already have Neos Fusion searched, I can also search that instead. And the versatility of Miracle Fusion is what made me really regret. Like, I really don't like the fact that I took it out. But at the same exact time, I understand that if I ever opened it, it was the same thing as opening it, like, Neos in my hand. I couldn't do it. Turn 1, it was a dead card. Like, unless I pitched it or something, it was a dead card. Because in order to use it, I would need, for this deck, an instance, the only way to use it is to have Neos in the graveyard. And the only way to put Neos in the graveyard is to, once again, either fuse with it, or discard it with a Rakeki Break, or summon Cleamadu into Escudo, and just, like, I had to do X, Y, and Z in order to do Z major, just... But then again, I really like the fact that I got to run, I got to easily summon out Neos tonight. I got to, because I am running the Parasite Infestation skill, my opponent gets rid of the Parasite. That's an Earth monster, so I could go into, like, Elemental Hero Gaia and just do a massive 2,200 points of damage to my opponent, and I can also, again, go into Escudo because he's basically Brave Neos without protection, which, that easily makes him like a 26 beater. That's not bad. And just, there's a lot, and I could also go into Grand Merge by fusing by fusing both Neoses, and although I never got to do it, like, the idea behind that is you go into, like, a 4,200 attack my monster, you beat over, like, Ascalon or something, they summon Barca, you summon, like, Excrudo, or you summon, like, Neos Knight, and you run over Barca, and just, that's the idea. That was the idea. Never got to do it, and now I can't do it because I took out the other Neos, but again, the idea is there. Like, deck thinning wise, the idea is there, and I would run, like, Miracle Contact, but the problem with that is I'm only running 1 Brave Neos, and there isn't really a whole lot of reason, and because this isn't really like a warrior-focused deck, there isn't really a whole lot of reason to actually run that card, because the only other card I can get is Neos Knight, and a 25 Neos Knight isn't as good as, like, a 37 Neos Knight, especially going against decks like Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, which automatically have a minimum of 25 attack or 25 defense you're dealing with, and you can't really do anything against that. So you need that 37-50 that you would normally have off of running Miracle Fusion, and you can't do that because it doesn't properly fusion summon. And in any case, so the third card I cut was a Crawler Dendrite, and that sounds stupid, but Crawler Dendrite had its moments where, well, what it does is it's a flip monster. It's a level 2 insect flip monster that when it flips face up, whether opponent attacks it or you flip it yourself, you can send a monster from your deck to your graveyard. Which, A, that's deck thinning, and B, that could net me out my other Elemental Hero Neo so I can get Miracle Fusion live. That could get Insector Hornet into my graveyard. That can get Insector Hopper into my graveyard. That can do a whole bunch of things to just make it sure that I don't see cards that I don't want to see, or draw into cards I don't want to see, in other words. While also technically being a 13 beater, which, when your opponent doesn't have anything, 1,300 damage is pretty decent, but And also again, being an Earth monster, I could fuse it with Miracle Fusion to summon Elemental Hero Gaia and do 2,200 points of damage to an opponent's monster, and like there's a lot it did. The problem is, it served the same function as the second Neos and the Miracle Fusion. If I opened it, it was basically a dead card. Like, I had to physically set it, and in situations where I would want to set it, I also opened either Ballistic Squad, or I opened Dragon Magic, so I would just that's the card I'm pitching, or I needed to do the Centipede Hornet play, and just, there were other things I needed to do when I saw it, and I just couldn't do it. Like, it's a great card to open up turn 1, because like, you can bait out some of the things your opponent's doing, you can see what your opponent's doing, and maybe start setting up if you get it off, but otherwise, just top decking it or anything like that, it was not ideal. So I had to cut it. But I didn't realize after I did that the parasite infestation skill I'm using, the only way it activates is by running 4 different insects. And because I'm only running Hornet, Centipede, and Hopper, which I'll talk about in a sec, but because I'm running only those 3 in terms of insectors at the time, I had to add an Earwin. And let's talk about Insector right now. So Insector is a toolbox Voltron deck where the idea behind it is you summon one monster, and then you use the power of that one monster in combination with the other monsters to do things. In other words, that was a horrible explanation. Oh my gosh. Well, so okay, let me explain that again. So the core card you want to run is Insector Centipede, and his effect is if something is equipped to him and it drops off, like your opponent destroys it, or you destroy it yourself, or you send it off it, he gets to search your deck for your other Insector cards. So the main combination is to go Centipede into Hornet, and Hornet says when this card's equipped, you can basically drop it off to pop something on the field, which you can use that to pop back row, you can use that to pop monsters, you can use that to pop field spells. Like, you can even pop your own stuff too. So if you have like a clogged back row, you can clear your ways. If your opponent floodgates one of your monsters, you can pop your own monster just to clear out your space. The versatility is amazing, which is why I'm trying to use the word toolbox, which I don't think is entirely right, but... And then by dropping it off of Centipede, you search your deck off you can search your other Insector cards, you can search Insector Sword Excalibur to make your Centipede a 2,400 attack point monster, which is pretty beefy. It doesn't beat a Dark Magician by itself, but it beats a Dark Magician while in defense mode, but it doesn't beat it by itself, but it lets you do a lot, in other words. Then there's Hopper. Hopper is a 1,700 attack that, you can equip it and then pop it, and Hornet has the same effect. Hornet, you can equip something, and then if it's a Hornet, you can drop it. If it's anything else, you can do whatever. Hopper, however, if it's equipped, you can drop it instead and make the monster it was equipped to attack directly, which, Centipede being 1,600 attack, that's 2/5 of your opponent's life points, and that basically means that can finish the games off if you've already done a lot of damage, or it can net you very close, or if your opponent has walls, you can just go attack over the walls, and that's pretty nice. Like, the only downside is that you can't do that turn 1 because there's no battle phase on turn 1. But other than that, it's very versatile, very effective. Earwig I had to run because in order to use Infestation skill, I had to run a fourth insect, and his effect is basically make things bigger. That's all he does. Like, he makes my Centipede a 26, he makes my Hopper 27. That's pretty nice. And he's also an Insector by himself, so technically he can blah blah blah. He can equip things also. And even though he's only 1,000, that's 1/4 your opponent's life. And funny enough, the duel after I put him in, I wasn't sure about him. The duel afterwards, I opened up him and Hornet, and it's like, oh, cool, I can use Hornet right away. So having that extra name is nice, but the idea and the reason why I'm only running 2 Centipede, 2 Hopper, and 2 Hornet is basically because that's all I need. Like, the minute Dragonfly comes into the game, which hopefully it will eventually, but the minute Dragonfly enters the game, I'm dropping Earwin, of course, and Insector Dragonfly is, if something drops off it, you can summon another Insector from your deck, which can, lead into Exceed plays. Very nice. Or it can it can thin your deck. You can go Dragonfly into Centipede into a whole bunch of things, pop a whole bunch of cards. My gosh, that card would be amazing, but otherwise, the reason I'm running 2 of each is so that if something happens to one of them, like my opponent uses the Aroma card that banishes a thing from the graveyard, or my opponent banishes something on the field, or just whatever. If something happens to one of them, I do have access to the other one. Like, there are situations where I summoned Centipede against Shiranui. And the Shiranui boss monster can protect itself. So I Centipede, equip Hornet. Hornet attempt to pop his the level 10 boss monster. The boss monster saves itself. Centipede effect triggers, but then they banish the monster that popped face-up cards, and they attempt to pop Centipede. So I can't really go searching Excalibur's sword because I can't because my Centipede's gonna get popped. So instead, I can just go search another Centipede. Or situations where I have a Hornet and my opponent just gets rid of my Hornet, and so being able to search the second Hornet, I can just do one or two things. So there's that, and obviously there's a couple more plays to keep in mind with that too. So, but nevertheless, let's talk about Parasite Infestation Kill. Parasite Infestation is a skill that is primarily was used in burn decks. And although it's not used now, probably as much, you might occasionally see a burn deck still using it. The reason I'm using it is because the sheer RNG that comes into the skill is absolutely hilarious. So what it does is, at the start of the duel, after you draw your starting hand, both you and your opponent draw their starting hand, it puts either one or two parasites into your opponent's deck. And Parasite is when you draw it while it's face up, and you draw it. It summons itself to the field, and your opponent takes 1,000, which first of all is 1/4 their life points. But also, and this is hilarious, also it turns every monster on their field into insect type monsters, which that hard stops a lot of things actually. There was a game where I was playing against Six Samurai. And what happened was, because the Parasite was on the field, they couldn't go Shien, because Shien needs an Earth tuner. Needs a Warrior tuner in order to summon itself. But unfortunately, I got two Parasites off him before he could do it. But my gosh, it was hilarious. There's also another game. I can't remember it offhand, but because what was it? What was it exactly? I'm blanking on it. But there was another game where, because my monster turned his monsters into insects, he couldn't get his effects off. Nevertheless, it is RNG wise, it's really funny, but at the same time there is some drawbacks to it. I won a lot of my duels because of it, but there was also some duels where my opponent literally top decked Parasite, turn 1 or turn 2. It got summoned, they took their 1,000, but then either if my opponent used Sage to then send it to the graveyard to summon Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then it lost, or my opponent was running Invoked, and they summoned the level 8 Earth Fusion monster, and then it lost. If your opponent can make use of it, or they got summoned to their field, and then they immediately summoned a Synchro monster off it, and then it lost. So while it can be very useful and very annoying, if your opponent can do something with it, like Tribute Summon or anything at all, you are basically still giving your opponent a monster. That is the major thing to keep in mind. And thankfully, not a lot of decks are running either rank 2s or Link Summoning is not in the game. Otherwise, the skill would be a whole lot worse. But RNG-wise, it's just a fun skill. It messes with the opponent's deck. If your opponent is drawing a Parasite, that basically means whatever they did have, they're not getting more They're not getting more resources for that turn. So if you can momentum push, get rid of enough of the resources and burn them enough damage, you could win with that alone, or put them in a worse situation to where they can't really recover. Parasite is very evil, but again, if your opponent can do something with it, you kind of lose. If they can't, you get a turn reprieve. And that has its up and downs, but nevertheless. So I did mention that I took out Neos, I took out Miracle Fusion, and I took out Crawler Dendrite. And with Crawler Dendrite, I replaced it with Irwin, but I had to add a whole bunch of trap cards. I wasn't running Fiendish Chain, I wasn't running Drowning, and I definitely wasn't running Karma Cut or Dimensional Wall Disruption. I wasn't running those cards. But unfortunately, with the way decks are now, I kind of have to. I mentioned that like I use Centipede with Hornet to try to pop their boss monster, and then the boss monster doesn't die, and then the boss monster uses an effect to basically kill my cards, or my opponent summons Ascalon, or whatever happens, and I can't do anything about it. So I feel like I have to run more trap cards now. Like there's so many more annoying decks now that like I have to run these answers, the attempt to run these answers to them without, which I don't want to do. Like, I really don't want to do this. Inzektor is a deck that focuses on a lot of monsters, being able to use one monster with another monster, and that's great. But if I'm running more trap cards, that means I see more trap cards, and I can't use my monster with my monsters. So, while I don't want to run more trap cards because that messes up what my deck's theme is, at the same time, I have to run more trap cards because I have to deal with more threats, and it's frustrating too. No, seriously, why are certain cards still as powerful as they are? Like, why is Lunalight Crimson Fox still a thing? Why is Dark Magic? Why is Dark Circle, like the Dark Magician spell card that banishes things? Why is that still a thing? Why does Dragunity have access to multiple Ascalons, where if you kill one Ascalon, they just summon a new Ascalon? Why does Shiranui still allow to like turn one their level 10 boss monster? Like, why is that still a thing? Like, that is like, I understand the idea that if every deck is powerful, then that means if two powerful decks go against each other, it's a fun game. Like, I understand that concept, but I'm running Inzektor. This is a casual deck. This is not a high meta deck whatsoever. Going against a powerful deck that's using all their strongest moves turn one. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do when my opponent just shuts me off and prevents me from doing anything? What am I supposed to do when I brick and I just hard lose? And then I lose a bunch of times and have to level back down from 19. Like, what am I supposed to do other than just running more trap cards? Like, and that's the frustrating part. Like, there are a lot of powerful decks, and there are decks that just do a lot of things that you need to answer a lot of them, and just it's frustrating. It really is frustrating. Like no, seriously, why does Lunalight still have access to Crimson Fox? That's an OTK. That's an OTK that if you try to do something to Cat Dancer, like you target it, Crimson Fox negates it. You go to 5,000 life points, but then that doesn't matter because you're taking 5,000 damage anyway, so why does that matter? And why is that still a card? Like, at this point I'm rambling, but nevertheless, my deck is more or less straightforward. Like, you know, Inzektors do Inzektor things, and I have Neos just to send that Hornet or Hopper or whatever I need to my graveyard. It's very straightforward. And Parasite is just an annoying skill in general. In terms of the extra deck, like the Predaplant Fusion monster, just because I'm running a bunch of Darks, and it lets me search Neos Fusion. Brave Neos, because Brave Neos. Escudo, because, again, the Predaplant plus Neos is still technically a thing. Neos Knight. Neos Knight is still technically in here because I can always Dragon Magic reveal it after Neos Fusion. I can always Dragon Magic reveal it and then get back my Neos, so I can have a 2,000 defensive wall that can flip someone into a 25 attack point monster. So that's the idea there. Gaga Cowboy. Gaga Cowboy is a weaker Predaplant Fusion monster where it goes to 25 and your opponent loses 500 attack. So if you're fighting something with 25 attack, you can run it. You're like a Dark Magician. You can run it over 500 damage. Or if you summon it blank in defense mode, it can technically do 400, but 400 does nothing in this game. Like, it might curve you a little bit of damage, but it doesn't really net you that win that Gaga Cowboy is known for. It doesn't finish games off, unfortunately. Leviathan and Maestroke are just kind of here as extra filler pieces right now. Like, easily, if Castel ever comes in this game, like, they'll easily be Castel. Or, like, I was running Leviair, the Sea Dragon, for this whole idea that if my Centipede or my Hornet gets banished, I could just bring it back. Or I could just steal something my opponent has, but that never really came up. Like, there are probably moments where it did come up, but like, it was always better to do other things other than going into Leviair. So while I would run Leviair, I kind of prefer the 25 attack point monster for the rank 3. And Maestroke, I love this card, even in the main game, because not only is this card a defensive wall, like it's a 23 3-hit it's a 2300 defense point monster that takes 3 hit to kill it. But you can also like detach a material to set an opponent's monster down. So if you're dealing with like that cat dancer like so if you're dealing with that cat dancer, you can detach to like bait out the Crimson Fox so that you can Centipede pop. Or if you're dealing with the level 10 Shiranui monster, you can detach, set the thing down, and then Centipede pop it. Like, this card has some versatility. Do not sleep on this card. It's amazing. Like, I summoned it in the replay duel that I posted, just because I can. But it's like I'm running Earwin, I'm running Hopper, I'm running Dragon Magic. I can make it. I can make Reg Force in this deck. I thought about running Diamond Dyer, but Diamond Dyer kind of sacked itself. It's a card that sacks itself, and that's only good for cards that that can just recoup their advantage. Like Light Swarm that can just summon more monsters out of nowhere, or like Luna Lights, or like any sort of fusion deck, or not fusion, yeah, fusion decks that can instantly summon a brand new monster, or go into Neil's fusion, or really any deck that can recoup a lost on the field is going to take heavy advantage of it, because what it is it's basically like a spot removal. That's all it is. Like Black Rose Dragon is a field removal. Diamond Direwolf is a spot removal. So even though I am considering running it, there are times where I don't need that spot removal. I need a big beef monster that does things. So that's where Mace Stroke comes in handy. Mace Stroke, I can set a monster and then run over something, or set a monster and then use something else to like do this and that with it. But in any case, that's kind of been my KC Cup. Hopefully like some sort of like Limitless comes out afterwards and curves a lot of those decks. Hopefully the next KC Cup may be easier. Like, I think they are trying to make things easier every time with you don't level down past a certain point, but seriously, just don't make round 1 so difficult. Seriously, just have them not make round 1 so difficult and things will get better. But how's it going for you? Are you doing well? Are you having troubles? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear feedback. I love to hear people how other people are doing. And honestly, just have a good night.